Hey y'all, I'm Sarah. Welcome to another episode of Widow Wit and Wisdom. I know it has been a minute. I am sorry. Hurricane season, holidays, all of that kind of knocked me off track. I'm hoping to get back on track now. But I survived it. I made it through another hurricane season. Yay, go me. Birthday, all of that good stuff. And I am still here. Still hanging by a wire, hair on fire. Not gonna lie, but still here. And let me tell you, I learned a lot this hurricane season. It was one of the best ones I've had in a long time. And I cannot wait to tell everybody all about it. But that will be for another episode. But first of all, I got my grief coaching certificate finally. Yay! During that period. And that's why I think it was a little bit less rough this year, because I had that focus. I was working on the courses and I learned a lot. It was a time where I really got to reflect on what it was like in my early widowhood versus like almost 9 years in as I was going through my hurricane season. So really made a big difference. Can't wait to share that. But today's episode is going to be a little bit of that wicked widow wit. So disclaimer on this one, you better buckle up because this one is definitely not going to be for everybody. This is one of those, I'm just going to be straight shooting. The reactions I've had to things, they are not always right. They have not always been right. I am working on it. So please don't judge my grief journey. But for anyone who needs a good laugh or reacts to things not quite right in their widowhood, you're going to love this one. So buckle up, buttercups, for this episode of Widow Wit and Wisdom. As a widow and a person who has grieved and taken care of my mom with dementia, I know that wit and humor are not always appreciated. However, wit and humor are how I have always dealt with things. I have always had just a quick humor, a quick wit, like all of my life. It's always been my shield when I was anxious. And widowhood, of course, made that different. That wit and that humor added with the widowhood wisdom, Lord have mercy. It has seriously become the tip of my sword. So like I've said before, the filter burnt up in the hellfire. So it is hard for me not to just say the first thing that comes to mind, which is often something inappropriately witty or I really shouldn't have said that kind of thing. But yes, I do tend to lead with humor these days. Now, in my early widowhood, I have to tell you, I felt like I was never gonna laugh again, and for me that was super hard. If anybody else has that problem, like I've always come at things with humor, and so to not even feel like I was ever gonna laugh again or find anything funny, that it just felt so wrong to me, so off. And I did not feel myself at all. And in fact, the first time that I actually laughed at something, I was like shocked by it. It shocked my nervous system, and I was like afraid of it. And then, oh no, like why did I laugh about that? Like I shouldn't have found that funny, but yet it was one of those moments where I was like, but Jeff would have found that funny. He would have laughed too. And so it just was a shock to my system. Now it is just part of my system. Like it is just the quick wit, the humor. That is what I lead with. That is what saves me. It's always been my shield, but it really, truly, it has become my sword. And I am sorry for those that come across it. Most of the time, it's just in my head. Like, I'll just say it like in my head. I'm not going to blurt it out. I do really try to filter it these days or use it at least in a meaningful way when I can. But y'all, I mean, it just comes belting out of me sometimes. But I thought I would share with y'all a few of the reactions and comebacks that I've had, especially for all my new widows out there. I have all the comebacks that you need over here, sitting over here. If you need a graceful comeback, if you need a smart ass comeback, like, trust me, I've had all the situations 9 years in. I've been in all of them. I've dealt with them in all the wrong ways and the right ways and the funny ways and the dangerous ways, like shouldn't have done that. But anyway, I'm here to share all of mine with you just so you can learn and then have a little more wit and wisdom to go along with your own. Please learn from this. And I do not recommend doing any of this, but should you need a few good comebacks. One of the first, like very early ones I dealt with, and I think a lot of especially new widows are dealing with, is comparing your widowhood to divorce. Oh my God. Like in early widowhood, to me, there was nothing more annoying. Now I'm just like, oh, bless. And then, like, oh, the thoughts. And then sometimes the things I say. Allow me to share those with you in case you need some witty comebacks too. So, on the topic of widowhood versus divorce, a lot of times for widows and widowers, that when you compare your divorce to our widowhood, it is like nails on a chalkboard. I know it was for me, especially in early widowhood. It still can be sometimes when someone's comparing my grief to their divorce. Oh, trying to be empathetic. It's not the same. I appreciate the thought, but it's not the same. Now, while I can be much better about that now, in my early widowhood, like the very first time it happened, it shocked me so bad. I had hands down the worst but most honest reaction to it that I think I've ever had. I worked through it after that because at that time, I think I was maybe 2 months in when it happened the first time, and I was not prepared for that. It had never in my entire life entered my brain in any way to compare anyone's grief or widowhood to divorce. Like, I had never been divorced. I didn't know what that was like. So I had nothing to compare it to. And so when that man walked up to me and said, "Oh, at least you're not getting divorced. This looks way easier," as I am cleaning out all of my life in this one building with my husband, and it happened to also be the building where he died, I was like, "Excuse me, what?" And he's, "Yeah, this looks way easier. At least you don't have anybody to argue with," and blah, blah. And he's like ranting about his divorce. And I am staring at him, literally mouth hanging open, and my son stepping back because he can see what's about to happen. And I'm just like, what the hell? You're comparing your divorce to my husband's suicide? Like, at least you had a fucking choice. I'm a widow and did not choose this. And I just started yelling. Are you kidding me? I would take fighting with him any day over this. And the guy was like mortified. I feel bad. That was a poor reaction, but also my dead honest one in that moment, 2 months in, having never thought about that. Now, again, 9 years has brought so much more perspective and strength and quick wit. Now I deal with that much more like gracefully. It doesn't bother me as bad. I empathetically listen because divorce is hard. It does come with grief. I would not want it. That would suck to have to go through that. But again, inside of me, I know that's not, at least you get to choose. There is a piece of me that's like a little bit jealous that you at least got to choose or not. But again, I don't fully empathize with that because Jeff and I had a great marriage. Divorce was not like a thing. And so it's not something I've been through, but I understand that it comes with grief. But for me, it was hard to get through that too. And sometimes if I'm just not in the mood, it is difficult not to just be like, oh my God, just seriously, like, at least you can be pissed at them. At least you can blame them, hate them, and other people hate them too. Nobody else hates the dead guy. They just all hate me. Like, that's it, period. And so, yeah, it's just different. I'm not saying that out loud necessarily. Okay, sometimes I do. But that's what I'm thinking inside is like, it's not really quite the same. One of the other things about widowhood versus divorce, especially having become a widow at 41, is the assumption that I am divorced, and people simply like assuming that I'm places by myself because I'm divorced, or not talking about my husband because of that. And so they'll talk about their ex, be complaining about their divorce, complaining about their ex, and then they'll be like, you know what I mean? And that happened to me recently at a social event here locally. With someone, and she was sitting there and she's talking about her divorce and why she's back here in this small town, and I'm listening, and it was I felt bad for her, genuinely. And then she turns to me and she's like, after talking about her ex, and she's like, "Did you have that like when you got divorced?" I was like, no. I said, I'm not, I didn't get divorced. And she's, oh, I thought you were divorced. And I was like, no, my husband died. He's in the cemetery just over the hill right there. Top of the hill. Yeah. And she's, oh, it's like, I'm sorry. And I was like, I don't know, it's fine. I said, right now you're making me feel real good about my widowhood for the first time in a long time, because I wouldn't want to deal with that kind of shit either. No, thank you. I was like, but yeah, what I dealt with was hard, but it was very different than that's for sure. Not like that. Yeah, that's how I deal with it now. No more like yelling and screeching at people, and definitely with the whoops. Oh, I thought you were divorced. No, I try to be much better about that. Usually it's a quick, oh, no, he's dead. Or no, just a widow. And then usually that will stop the conversation when you tell them you're a widow and you're like, oh, yeah. So anyway, all the quick comebacks. And then, of course, there's the people like complaining about their husbands now, their spouses now. Oh, my goodness. Again, with the nails on the chalkboard. Especially in early widowhood, like I would have given anything to yell at Jeff or talk to Jeff or just any of it. Now, of course, I still do, just in my own way. But especially when people are complaining about their spouses, it's very hard to empathize, because I find myself now, I get jealous. I'm jealous that like your husband's being lazy and not helping you pack the car. Like I'd give anything to be yelling at my husband for those things right now. And I have gotten much better at dealing with that. Early on, it was more just people would be like complaining about their spouse, and I would just be like, yeah, but at least he's not dead. Like mine's dead. I do still occasionally say that. In fact, very recently, I had someone complaining about their husband made them late. They weren't helping and blah, blah, blah. I was watching the game or whatever. And I couldn't help it. And again, I try to do this only out loud with people with a good sense of humor. And I was just like, girl, I get it. I'd be pissed too. I was like, at least my husband has a good excuse. He's dead. Like yours is just being a dick. That's my comeback for that now. Like, at least mine's dead. Yours is just an asshole. When people are complaining about their husbands. But again, I get jealous when people are complaining about their husbands or arguing with their spouses. Again, recently I was over at somebody's house and she and her spouse got in an argument and over something ridiculous. And I found myself like just trying to melt into the background, and I was like jealous that they had such a petty argument, but also at the same time going, oh my God, I would have handled that so differently. I would have thrown the frying pan at him. Like, you showed so much more grace than I would have. Like, I learned. But yeah, I was jealous of that situation. And when she said something to me about it later, she came to me and she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened. And I was like, honest with her. I just said, you know what? I love that it happened, because I miss arguing with Jeff about stupid crap. I miss getting to, I wanted to say, I would throw the frying pan at your head. Like I would have thrown it at his head and told him to cook his own shit for the rest of his life. And like you handled that so much better. But I said I was jealous that I couldn't yell that at my husband at some point. And she was just like, holy crap, I've never thought of it that way. And I was like, yeah, so it didn't bother me at all. It just kind of made me like laugh and be jealous of it in a weird grief way. She was like, I have literally never thought of our arguments like that someday I might miss it. And I said, I miss it all the time. I wish I could yell at him about taking the trash out. And I said, I wish I could be pissed off at him when we're doing a project together and then admitting which one of us was right and wrong and that kind of thing. And I said, I miss those things. But yeah, it's the weird little things like that. And so then a few weeks later, she said to me, she said, I got to tell you what happened. She said, we were out working on a project on the farm and we were arguing so bad. And she said, in that moment, I stopped and I said to myself, you know what? Sarah would like love to be having this moment right now. So I'm going to try to look at this moment somehow from appreciation that in the future I'm going to find this. and miss it because right now I want to run over him with a four-wheeler. And she said, honestly, it changed her attitude on the whole thing and made her kind of just stop and be like, let him screw it up his way and then we'll do it the right way. Which totally happened. And she said, got the project done. And but it helped me knowing that it is the small, weird crap like that you missed. And she said it helped me have that moment to like, just be like, okay, I'm cool with this, and know that somebody out there would be missing it and appreciating it. So I was glad that I had shared my quick like wit when she apologized for their argument about just being honest. And I was jealous. Because it seemed to help there somewhere along the way. So again, the wit and the humor just comes out of me, and sometimes it helps and sometimes it hurts. Another one of my not so stellar moment reactions, just spur of the moment. I was overwhelmed. I was in the shop getting my car fixed, and it happened to be just days, like the day before I was heading into Houston to spend Thanksgiving with the whole family. Like my son, my dad, and I were going to my other son's house, and we were spending Thanksgiving all together as a family for the first time in a long time. And it happened to be the first year that the anniversary of Jeff's death also fell on Thanksgiving Day. And so it was just an overall overwhelming time in my hurricane season, lots going on. And my air conditioner broke in my car. And so I roll into town, and my son was like, hey, bring it into the shop. We'll fix it, blah, blah, blah. And so I roll into town to pay for that and pick up my car. And I was in full panic mode because I ruined the dinner rolls and just overwhelmed. I was in the office talking to his boss and paying for it. And he was asking me how we were doing and everything because he knew what was going on. And I was like, I've burnt the rolls. I got to get more butter. The eggs didn't come out good. So now I got to go get more eggs. And I got to get to town. And thank you for fixing the car, because at least now I can get to Houston with air conditioning with all this shit tomorrow, and my dad. And I was just like, thank you so much. But a guy had come in as I was doing that, and he turns to me as I'm like panic stricken going, I have all this stuff to do and I've got to get all this stuff and I hope the store's open. And the guy was just like, why doesn't your husband help you with some of that? And I literally turned to him, and I could see my son's boss go, oh shit. And I just turned and I was like, I know, right? He should be. And I'm going to stop by the cemetery on my way home and tell him that. And I just grabbed my keys off the desk and left. And I got a phone call from my son later, and he's, Mom, I heard you made somebody cry in the office today. And I was like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so yes, not my finest moment. If you catch me in those overwhelmed moments, I'm just going to cut straight to the quick, and I do not care how you handle it. I said what I said. Yeah, not always the best reactions to that kind of stuff still, but yeah, getting much better at it. That was a few years ago too now. Like I said, this last Thanksgiving was fantastic. I had a ton of fun. So much better now. Now, my wit and humor has also led to some rather embarrassing moments at times. Here recently, for instance, at almost 9 years in, during my hurricane season, I happened to be out at a grocery store. I was caregiving for a lady with dementia, and we had gone to the store, and she had sat down at the little picnic area there to eat, and I was going to run get her a drink, and I knew I had 2 minutes tops, like, to get the drink and back to her before, if she had gotten up and wandered off, like, she was out of my sight. So I was in a huge hurry, and bless it. So as a widow, like, I've been a widow 9 years. I've tried dating. I just had no thank you at this point. Nah, I had my love story. I'm good. I'm not looking for anything. So I'm not thinking by any means standing in this grocery store with purple hair, I'm sure food on my skirt at that point, and grabbing a drink, that anybody's going to be flirting with me. So I'm standing at the drink thing, and I'm grabbing a soda, and a guy says something about my hair, which is so common. And so I do my quick, oh yeah, hi, thank you. I appreciate that. And he said, no, let me ask you about it. And I was like, oh, like I'm in a hurry. It's a widow thing. My husband died, suicide awareness, like mental health awareness. I got to run. And he's, no, ma'am, I'm trying to flirt with you. And I was like, wait, what? Like, okay, still, because I just told you I was a widow. And then I'm like backing up, like, what? And he's, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I'm a widow. And I said, you look to be about like the age of my children, maybe early 30s. And he's, yeah. And I was like, yeah, my kids' age. And he's, it's okay, I'm into older women. I literally started, like, I'm sorry, I busted out laughing, and I was just like, oh my God. I was like, bless your heart. That is probably that I am flattered, and I super appreciate this. Like, you are making my day right now, but I have got to get back to her. And I've got to say, I find that flattering. It is just not my thing, but it is probably a smart decision because everybody y'all's age is just batshit crazy. Be careful out there. It's just not, I'm just not the one, but thank you. And there was a lady like walking really slowly, like witnessing all of this, and she was dying laughing. I did make it back to the like checkout counter and to the table in my in my time period. She was still sitting there and very happy. And then it hit me like everything that had just happened and I had said, because like that, I never thought for a second, like my way through that until I got back to the table and I was like, oh my God, I need to go apologize to that guy. Like, holy shit, I feel so bad about that. Like, I didn't even realize he was flirting with me. Oh well. Sorry. So yeah, widow reactions, not always the best. My reactions in particular, but hey, at least I keep it interesting. Yeah. Quick wit can get me into some interesting stuff. But it has also just really, again, been my saving grace. And I realize not just in my widowhood, but my ability to quickly laugh at a situation, even if it's internally, and laugh at myself in that situation is life-saving to me on so many levels, because it at least stops whatever train wreck of thought is going on and gives me a moment of just like funny pause, which my brain needs so bad. And I know in early widowhood that, again, that felt like shit. I really never thought I was going to find anything funny ever again. And when we were choosing Jeff's funeral flowers, and I had the kids and I laughed about it, like it felt wrong because we were like, he hated flowers. Like he would hate that we were doing this, like buying flowers. And we laughed and it felt like good to have that moment of levity, but it also like really hurt because then I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't have laughed. That wasn't funny. I feel really bad now. And I even apologized to the cashier that day. And I was like, I'm so sorry that we laughed. I know that was really inappropriate. And she's, no, that actually happens more than you think. And I said, oh, does it? And she's, yeah. And I was like, okay, because it felt good. And she's, it's supposed to. And I was just like stunned because, again, I hadn't been a widow but maybe a week at that point. And it was definitely the first time I had laughed or found anything funny. And to have her just be like, it's okay. I needed that because I was really like freaking out, like, oh my God, like I shouldn't have done that. So it helped. And eventually I was able to laugh about more things. It took a long time. Things aren't always funny, but I was able to look at myself and laugh at myself in certain situations, especially now, having gone back, like I said, through the grief coaching stuff earlier and looking back at what I was relying on in the early widowhood. And it really was like, especially my journals, there is some cutting wit in there. Shit, I definitely would not have said out loud, but it felt good to say it in the moment. And some things that I did. So I will continue to share some of that wit and widow wisdom with you. But maybe on the next one, I will share just how badly my fight flight is broken, because there's been some doozies with that one, especially with that, not just that wit and wisdom, but that just fearlessness and zero fucks that comes with widowhood. We're just, I'm willing to step in. I am willing to protect. I am willing to say the thing. If you are saying the wrong thing, I'm here. I'm your Huckleberry. I have so many of those moments for you that have been interesting, but I'll share those next time. Thank you for joining me for this rather witty Widow Wit and Wisdom. I can't wait to share more with you next time. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear some of your little zingers and wits and wisdoms from your grief and widowhood too. And if you need any help with your grief to bring out a little more of your own wisdom and maybe a little bit of wit too, please hit me up for grief coaching. I would love to help you out. You can contact me at widowwitandwisdom@gmail.com. Thanks. And always remember to be the light in someone's day, even if it's your own.